Welcome to Cross Over the Pond, brought to you by 21 Media Productions and Sports Social. He's Drew Lasker, I'm Josh Sexton. In person for the first time, we have literally crossed over the pond to here in Las Vegas. We are in the Aria Hotel during Las Vegas Summer League. We've been enjoying it so far. Me and Drew linking up for the first time in person. It was an emotional first meeting, wasn't it, Drew? In the casino, Planet Hollywood. I saw you across the room as you walked in, and I was like, Drew. And then we ran towards each other into each other's arms. It was a great moment.
And then it was followed up by some woman coming from out of the abyss in a USA skirt
cloud of
to
smoke.
embrace us. So it was meant to be. But yeah, for context, Josh and I have been working together for years, but this is the first time that we actually met in person.
Yeah.
So Vegas out of all places, but we manifested. We talked about it all. We talked about it all season. And we're here for NBA Summer League.
Even more ironic because we only actually live 2 hours apart in the UK, but instead I flew 10 hours direct to Vegas to come and meet Drew. So sometimes you just gotta make these big sacrifices, and we do it for you guys on the podcast, of course. But it's been a really interesting Summer League so far, Summer League experience so far, Drew. I've really enjoyed seeing some of the top draft guys playing. We're getting to that part of Summer League now where guys start to get shut down, which I don't know about you, that always kind of disappoints me for the first year guys. I do think there's an extent to which, like, even if you are AJ Dybantsa at the top of the draft class, even if you are Darryn Peterson, who did play the last game with the Jazz, to be fair, but let's talk about him being potentially shut down for the last game. I just think this is like your moment to shine. I understand it with second year guys, and Boston had, sat a couple of the second year guys, but with the ones who are coming in first year, like, it does feel like Summer League is the chance, and there's obviously some guys here who are really hungry to take that chance, who maybe were at Summer League last year but spent last year in the G League and things like that. So this is the opportunity for even the guys at the top of the draft class, but some guys at the bottom of the pecking order really as well, to come and showcase their stuff.
Yeah, from a selfish point of view, obviously we would love to see all the stars play for the entire week. You see the fans coming from all over the world to come join Summer League, but I think from the team's perspective, it gives them an opportunity to look at the other guys. Because, obviously those top guys, the offense is ran around them. Everything is centered around them. So it allows them to see what guys maybe they can pick up for two ways, what guys can make it into training camp. And then, obviously they don't want their guys to get hurt. We've already seen a fractured ankle from one of the players. But yeah, this has been a great showcase for some of the top picks that we've seen so far. I'm excited to get to the season and see what they really look like. And like we talked about all season, because we can dive into a couple of players, is Summer League 101, just like playoffs, is you can't overreact. Absolutely. Which is difficult to do.
Exactly, and me and you were saying this during the playoffs, is that especially those game ones of the playoffs, to not overreact to those. I've had my own sort of personal experience of this. Like, Keaton Wagler played his first game for the Clippers at Summer League before I flew out here. So that second game, I was like, I really want to see something now, because I think a lot of people did overreact to that game one, and I think Keaton Wagler is going to have some real growing pains in the league. He's a slender player. I think since the start of last season at Illinois, he's put on 25 pounds. So even in his college year, he was having to bulk up to make sure he was ready for that level of physicality. So he'll come into the NBA now. He'll be playing, grown-ass men, and me and you have been walking amongst them this week. They are giants.
Everyone is
giants
tall.
Of men. Some of the guys are obviously coming in a little bit more sort of NBA body ready. At least we've seen that with guys like Cam Booz, with Yaxel Lendenborg. When you see them up close, they are really ready for the physicality of the league. But you kind of expect it with smaller, trickier guards, don't you, that there is going to be a bit of an adjustment. And again, this is why I think Summer League is a good chance for a guy like Keaton Wagler to start to just get a little bit of a feel for that. And listen, if he gets punched in the mouth, that's all okay. Because when you get into the league, people are going to be doing a little bit more than just punching you in the mouth.
Yeah, and the biggest thing when you move up from the college ranks to the NBA, what they all say is the speed is the first thing you need to adjust to. And then I wouldn't say necessarily the size, because especially at the power, the Dukes and the big time schools, those guys have footers, but it's the athleticism with the footers that you don't see in college. So, for example, watching Fleming with the Atlanta Hawks a couple of days ago, I could tell that he was kind of gauging out the athleticism. He had a couple of turnovers. He didn't look comfortable with his shot, just gauging it. But exactly what you said, this is exactly what Summer League is for, to prepare them for what's to come. Although when the season starts, the talent level jumps up massively. And that's the thing that a lot of times fans, when they think about the guys at the end of the bench, they always use the word scrubs or sorry, or they can't play. But when those guys get the opportunity, you could tell like they're the less than 1%. But then when you talk about the guys that's actually on the roster, that goes up exponentially.
And we've seen that already, like guys sort of relishing, I guess, the rivalries between, one top draft pick to another. You were in the mix zone in the media scrum yesterday for
Yeah.
Mikel Brown Jr., sort of talking about him relishing that challenge. I think Caleb Wilson is the one who's probably stood out to me in terms of the eye test so far. I'm like,
Yeah.
he looks like he's ready to relish this challenge. There probably weren't as many questions about Caleb Wilson's body type. He's definitely like a slender 6'8", 6'9", but he has that athleticism. We saw that with the dunk, the full extension, throwing it in the rim the other day. I can't remember who that was against. I think that might have been against the Utah Jazz. They lost that game, funnily enough, which kind of comes back to that idea of like the Jazz, resting all of their starters for that one. Darryn Peterson didn't play, Ace Bailey didn't play, Cody Williams didn't play, and who's behind the camera here, keeps talking about how Cody Williams is a guy that you think would need summer league game time as well. We've mentioned that there are guys that definitely need this sort of transition period to get themselves ready for the NBA, but the Utah Jazz rested all their guys in that one, and the hungry guys at the bottom of the roster managed to knock off some of the top draft picks in Chicago. And the head coach to here, I've seen Thiago Splitter down on the sideline there, Steve Kerr we saw in the Golden State Warriors game yesterday. So these guys are there and they're going to be watching. And I don't know, this is almost like a call to arms for the top draft picks, really. Like, use this moment to shine, but also use this moment to be like, I'm not going to let the scrubbers, you said at the bottom of the roster, punk me in this way, because when I get to the NBA, there are going to be guys just waiting to punk me who've been doing this for years.
Yeah, and I love Caleb Wilson's last interview. He talked about the Utah Jazz game because they asked him why did he play the following day, which was a back-to-back in Summer League, which, it's very rare that those star players are going to play back-to-back. And he said he asked the coaching staff, could he play, because he wanted to finish Summer League on a high note. He said that he wasn't satisfied with his mindset in that Utah Jazz game, because as you do, you get yourself prepared. He was prepared to play Peterson. He was prepared to play all of those guys. And obviously, like you just mentioned, they all sat, and he said it kind of affected him mentally. I love that, because that says a lot about his maturity to be able to own up to that. Yeah. But I think this is a guy that could be a sleeper rookie of the year, because you look at his interviews, you look at his you just look in his eyes, and you can tell that he really think he should have been the number one pick, and so he's highly motivated. He came out first game, nearly a 40 ball. So this is a guy that I hadn't really watched that closely in college. So to be able to get to see him up close, he has all the attributes you just mentioned. He has the size. He has the length, and the big question mark was the shooting. And he mentioned that he's getting up like 1,500 to 2,000 shots a day. And when players always say that, I always think, really? Because to get up 1,500 shots a day, that's going to take you about at least 4 to 5 hours.
Yeah.
So, but obviously it's paying off, because his shot looks great.
Yeah, and that's one for Chicago Bulls fans to be excited about. It's maybe not been the summer league the Chicago Bulls fans would have hoped for so far, in the sense of like losing that game to the Utah Jazz. But this is again where I'd maybe preach a little bit of patience with NBA fans, like in terms of not overreacting to summer league. Don't overreact to the results sometimes as well, because really this is just like an adjustment period for a couple of those guys. These are rosters that are probably never going to play together ever again, really, even just in terms of starting fives. They're probably not going to get that chance to play together again. Got a guy like Noah Asenge, who's a second-year guy, but has clearly, gone through a major growth spurt over the summer. Looking at him now, he must be like a good 6'11" or something. So he's going to have to feel his way into that body. And I like that Chicago is kind of using that as a way to say, Summer League is your chance to feel your way into this body before you start going up against guys like Jalen Darryn and, the really big physical bodies in the NBA week in, week out. Isaiah Stewart on Memphis now, like those kind of guys are going to want to punk you when you're on the court. So if you are kind of just growing into slender frame, Summer League is the opportunity to really sort of find that next step almost.
Yeah, and specifically with the Bulls, they did come out and say that this is a rebuilding year, whereas over the last couple of years, it felt like they were trying to kind of reignite that magic they had 4 years ago with Lonzo Ball before he got hurt, and they were actually good. But since then, they've been one of those teams that we've talked about all season long that's just kind of been stuck in the middle. Now they know that with a new head coach, a new front office, that they can start to build a foundation and try to move forward. Because one thing you learn about the NBA is that you can't skip steps. You can't plug and play when you're in the middle. You can plug and play when you're a championship caliber team, but when you're sitting there in the middle of the pack and you're playing, you got to decide what you want to be. And typically you have to just start over. You have to start fresh. So I love everything that they did. Splitter has proven that he can be a great coach, because I don't think he got enough plaudits for what he did in Portland. That was a very difficult situation to step into.
And also like the player development side of that, like he's developed guys in Portland
Yeah.
now. So if they are going into a rebuild phase with Chicago Bulls, he's got experience of doing that.
Yeah, and so to be able to do what he did as a first-year coach, and now he knows going into the season that he is the guy. You see him coaching summer leagues, which normally head coaches don't coach, but he just wants to put his imprint on that team immediately. But, you know, one thing that I want to talk about is what this city has all come here for, the Buzz, AJ Dybantsa, the Washington Wizards, and just walking into the building the other day when they were playing, they were just this, some players just bring it out. This is a guy that walks, talks, and plays like he is an absolute superstar. So for Washington, all of a sudden, this is going to be a team that's going to get good really fast. And that front office talked about that they no longer want to sit here and develop. They want to compete now. So I'm interested to get your thoughts on Washington and all those pieces and how they maneuver around that.
They're a really interesting team, aren't they? Because they're also a team that's split in two timelines at the moment. They've got the kind of Trae Young, Anthony Davis side of that, where there's a couple of experienced guys who really are in their peak years, may have the bit between their teeth in terms of what they want to show to the NBA, but then they've also got this kind of like young core. And I have to be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed in Washington because they are one of the teams that pulled AJ Dybantsa from those games yesterday. Trey Johnson has not played in Summer League, and I'm still scratching my head a little bit of that. Will Riley we saw on the bench next to AJ Dybantsa in street clothes yesterday too. So I've kind of like come to Summer League with a bit of a bee in my bonnet. I've got to be honest about Washington. Like I'm excited to see what they can do with those young guys. I do really like the young guys in that roster, and I mentioned that a couple of times on the pod during the regular season last season as well. But I don't know, there's something about sitting first year guys, and I understand, like as you say, AJ definitely has this aura. Like if Caleb Wilson believes he should be the number one pick, it should have been the number one pick in the draft this year, AJ Dybantsa knew he was going to be basically from day one. He just kind of has that swagger about him. But I wanted to see that on a Summer League court. I wanted to see him come out kind of like a Caleb Wilson and be dunking on guys and throwing up 35 and making sure he almost like cements this as like, this is my Summer League, because that to me, like that does mean something. People can kind of like diminish the importance of Summer League. And I understand, you know, that to an extent in terms of not placing too much importance on it to the point where it's going to like keep you up nights, but in a positive sense, you can really use this to make your mark. And I'm probably going to come away, I don't know about you, Drew, I'm going to come away probably most impressed by Caleb Wilson of all the guys. I've been slightly disappointed in what I've seen of Cam Boozer so far, but he does look like he could be a really solid NBA player when he's playing off other NBA guys. So like I'm going to, you know, pump the brakes on judging him a little bit. Darryn Peterson had some question marks coming into this. Offensively looks brilliant, and he's really rode some defensive challenges, I think, so far as well. I saw him, you know, completely punking Keaton Wagler the other night, to be honest, and that was for me a bit of a wake up call in terms of, you know, how far apart the number 2 and the number 5 draft pick are in this season's draft class. So we got abruptly interrupted by some technical difficulties yesterday when we were recording, so we decided to pull into a slightly more relaxed environment for myself and Drew. We're actually on our last day of Summer League now. We both fly home. Well, home as in Texas for Drew first, before back to Newcastle and Manchester for me tomorrow. But it's been a pretty incredible experience on the whole, hasn't it, Drew? It's been, you know, valuable for us guys being out here, putting out the good word of cross over the pond. We've got plenty of interviews with the stars of the future, managed to rub shoulders with some stars from the past. When I was leaving the Thomas and Mack 4, I've got to be honest, I was feeling a bit emotional about it.
We pounded the ground of Vegas, and we invested a lot of time in that place. It's like our second home now, but mission accomplished. You know, not only did we get an opportunity to build relationships, but also just putting our face out there. You keep showing up, sooner or later, someone come up to you. It just happened to me. You know, a guy was like, "Hey, I saw you the other day, and I thought, did you used to play in the BBL?" And I was like, "Yeah." So he was a video coordinator for the Lakers.
Right.
So just small world, but
that's crazy.
It has been absolutely incredible. And most importantly, when we go into next season, there's nothing better than being able to see these young stars in the flesh. So we will be able to analyze these players at a whole different level, because the biggest thing that sticks out to me is how massive some of these guys are. I was just talking to you about Caleb Wilson. Like, he was the tallest guy on the court, legit 6'10", 6'11", and Yeah, my cup is full, man.
Absolutely, and I think Caleb Wilson's is, to be honest. Like we were speaking a little bit in the first half of this episode, which will be yesterday for us, about a couple of the teams maybe looking to rest guys towards the back end of summer league. I actually think Caleb Wilson has kind of booked that trend for a lot of teams now, because you've seen that since he came out and he laid his marker down, he was like, I'm not being sat, I want to play throughout this whole summer league, showing that real determination and hunger to make sure that he's not just coming into the NBA as a top 4 pick. He believes he should have been an even higher pick. This was the thing that, again, we talked about in that first part, but to me he's really shown that since he's been here, the determination to get to the rim, some of the dunk highlights that he's had since he's been out here, but especially that sort of mental side of things, because now since then the Jazz had sat Darryn Peterson, but suddenly he was back out. The Nets had sat Mikael Brown Jr., and suddenly he was back out. And there's even already talk that the Clippers might bring out Wagler for the final game against Minnesota tomorrow. So it feels like everyone has looked at Caleb Wilson and gone, oh, actually, we've gone from being able to like sit all these guys and everyone is doing it so no one can bat an eyelid, to Caleb Wilson has kind of fucked up the whole summer league.
I wonder, it's a trickle-down effect, and we've talked about it a number of times about, next season, you can no longer be sorry. You can't finish in the bottom 3. And with a lot of these teams that were in the lottery, with these young guys, even though they're ultra talented, you need reps. It's a new game. It's different rules. It's different size that you have to adjust to, the speed and all that. And Summer League kind of gives you these free games, because the next chance that these guys will be able to play with a referee and a whistle and something official, it won't be until October. So that's months away. So you can practice all you want, but nothing mimics the game like the actual game. And then with it being on television as well, ESPN and Prime, so it just get those guys going. So Caleb Wilson definitely has set the standard and got these other teams' antennas up like, okay, let me give my young guys some reps.
Yeah, and I think the Bulls have been bad, so he probably won't win Summer League MVP. But you can rest assured, Caleb, if you're watching this, that you've won my Summer League MVP for making sure that all teams stop resting their guys. But I think between the two sort of halves of this year, we've probably done enough about the on-court action at Summer League now. I wanted to talk a little bit about the off-court stuff that me and you have kind of been a little bit party to, I guess, in some ways or another. We've been hanging around the hotels. Obviously, you've been down in the media sections as well. There's been some sort of really interesting developments that have come out since we've been here. There's been the ongoing Kawhi Leonard saga, which I think Adam Silver was in Vegas to speak about the other day. Unfortunately, me and you didn't catch that. But even seeing, Kawhi being at Raptors games, Brady Dick's been at Clippers games as well, it seems like everyone is just kind of operating like that trade is still happening. The word on everybody's lips since they've been here is LeBron James and what he's going to do next, which proves that, even at 41 years old and probably going into a more team-friendly role next season, even than the team-friendly role he was already on with the Lakers last season as their third option, that the Kings' decision still is a big thing in this league. And then also there's been a lot of little trade bits here and there. I'm happy to put it on record and cross over the pond that I've seen Jonathan Kuminga being pretty close with the Lakers organization over the last few days. So
exclusive here.
Maybe there'll be some developments in that. I don't think that's any secret that he is being linked with the Lakers really, but it seems like maybe those negotiations are ongoing. He's been very close with their camps. So I don't know if you've seen anything else on top of that, Drew. If you want to make a couple of comments on a couple of those things.
More recently, the Gary Trent situation. The league is currently looking into that, because this is a guy that's had the minimum the last 2 years. Had a terrible shooting season last year, but then all of a sudden gets a 4-year deal for $64 million. For me, it's not so much the money, because these teams do have to spend, but it's the amount of years that you're linking into him. So, he is with Rich Paul and those guys, and they kind of just make the rules how they go. You know what I mean? They get maybe. That's the steer LeBron to Milwaukee. Who knows?
Who would know? It's interesting though, isn't it? Because it sort of follows that same theme of the Kawhi Leonard thing of, what Kawhi is effectively being investigated for, at least on the league side, is salary cap circumvention. I actually think there's parts of the aspiration thing that almost don't really pertain to the NBA in terms of like, why did Kawhi get the $30 million for a no-show? If the answer to that is salary cap circumvention, of course that is a problem. But then almost to a lesser extent, really, the Gary Trent situation is also salary cap circumvention. So it's a hard thing to say that, especially once you've had half a Corona in your system and you're feeling
it's
good in
Las Vegas. It's
Las
only his first one as well. We've been sober this trip. We've been working, so
we have.
This is the earliest we've had a beverage on all week, and much deserved as well, because there's a lot of temptation. I was at the pool this morning and seeing everybody kind of sipping on their margaritas, and I was like, I kind of want a taste of that, but I was like, no, gotta keep it business.
This very same place that we're in, La Salsa Cantina, which is this is the Miracle Mile Mall just off Planet Hollywood. They do 99 cents Bloody Marys with breakfast in the morning. And I've had breakfast here once, and believe me, that temptation was strong, but it was on a working day.
That's why you was kind of stumbling every time I saw you, because he would meet us at the hotel that I'm staying at. We would just kind of meet at the Uber rideshare place, and he was kind of swaying a little bit with that little smile on his face. So now it all makes sense.
False information being put out by Mr. Lasker there. Yeah, the LeBron thing is interesting. There's been a couple of rumors, and even beyond that in the last few days. I don't know if you saw this video of Steve Kerr where someone's filming him in the car, and he's saying like, "Oh, LeBron, it's already done." I actually saw Steve Kerr at the Thomas and Mack before coming out the pavilion after the Warriors game. I didn't.
You got your own viral video,
I messaged you at the time because it was just like there was like a ream of kids. And to be honest, adults acting like kids as well that were just following him. Like when the big stars are there, and Steve Kerr really is a big star in the NBA. I hope that kind of comes across to anybody who's an NBA fan. That is a star coach, Team USA coach, Golden State Warriors, multiple-time championship-winning coach. That's a big deal for people, and people were just like falling at his feet as they were chasing after him. So I wasn't going to do that. I've got to keep a certain level of professionalism, not stumbling around out here after these coronas. But as Drew says, me and him have kind of earned these drinks now, but LeBron has earned the opportunity to pick his destination, and I've always said from the start, I think probably the most romantic one for me is Golden State, because I like the idea of the romance of him and Steph Curry spending their last few years together, whether it's, LeBron does 1 year now, Steph does one more year on top of LeBron, where he kind of gets his own retirement tour with Golden State. Steve Kerr probably exits with Steph Curry as well, if we're being honest. He's only signed this 2-year deal this summer after already flirting a little bit with retiring from there. To me, like the Cleveland has some romance to it, but it makes no basketball sense.
Yeah.
And I know it's not a winning situation in Golden State. The other ones might make more basketball sense. Not sure about Philadelphia, whether it does in terms of on-court fit, to be honest. But in terms of putting LeBron in a winning situation, but there's no romance to that for me. Like him going to a completely random team that's had like no impact on his career really, just to try and win a championship with like a group of young guys, whether it's there or in Miami, it doesn't really sit well with me. I mean, maybe less so Miami.
Yeah, I mean, you use the word romance. It's actually called bromance to Golden State, because I cannot foresee. Well, let's agree to this, right? Wherever he goes, this has to be the last stop, right? I just feel some type of way of having your farewell tour on Steph Curry's turf. It just doesn't make any sense to me for you to steal the limelight from the guy that is the face of that franchise. So I see that more bromance than romance. And by the way, they are just not going to win. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So I describe that situation as the fun option. Like, it would be must-see TV. I'm watching every game. Believe you me. Cleveland for me makes sense from a romance standpoint, because if you go to Cleveland, you're saying this is a full circle moment. Miami, it looks really clunky to me. I just do not see that at all. I just keep saying this, and no one is saying this, is that I don't think he has any options. There's no option that makes sense. And again, like, I kind of feel sorry a little bit for LeBron, because the door is shut and he's outside kind of looking in, kind of left out in the cold. So I mean, I say I feel sorry. I mean, I do not feel sorry for someone who's a billionaire. So I think he'll get over it.
It's a limited amount of sorry you can feel.
Seriously. But yeah, it's a tricky situation. That's why it's being stretched out, I believe, because there's a lot of other moves that need to be made around the NBA, but it can't be made until you kind of fit that big puzzle piece, and then everything will kind of fall the way it's supposed to fall. So that's why I think you see a guy from the Clippers that hasn't been matched yet, or hasn't been offered anything. We talked about him a little bit. Mathurin. So, pieces like that, they're just kind of lying out in the weeds until LeBron kind of slots and fits everyone into where they're supposed to be.
Absolutely. And then anything else stood out to you from Summer League in general? Is there any sort of organizations that maybe you've reflected on a little bit differently for the season, having seen a couple of their guys in Summer League, or any of those kind of things?
I'm worried about Sacramento.
Right.
They're in a tough situation. They fell outside the top 5. And then this year, I would be shocked if they're able to maneuver their way out of the bottom three. Bottom three is consequence. You don't get, how far do you move up now? You can't, if you're bottom three, what's the lowest pick that you can have?
I think you can like fall to the bottom of the lottery, can't you? So like 15,
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah.
so, that situation could be atrocious. I saw Zach LaVine there in the background supporting the Kings. He obviously picked up that 50 million plus player option, which
Breaking news.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. But yeah, I'm worried about Sacramento, definitely. Washington, I'm excited about Washington. I've been saying this for a very long time. And I say all that to say, to answer your question is, you have to take this with a grain of salt. You can't overreact to anything that we've seen. The only value that we've seen, you and I, is that we've been able to see these guys up close, but not in a situation to where we can properly analyze these teams, because once they step into a real NBA floor, all of a sudden the level of talent goes up. From two perspectives is that, because you mentioned it, someone like Boozer, who's been really subdued this summer league and doesn't really stand out, he doesn't pop because he's, fundamentally sound, that's a guy who could perform better with talent around him. So, there's so many factors, there's so many scenarios that for Summer League, I just listed as it's a great opportunity to not only see this talent up close, but to see everything around the edges, like me being behind KG and Big Baby and kind of listening in on their conversation. Like, all that stuff is cool.
If I could pay for anybody in the NBA to be here with us having this drink, I would probably make it Glenn Davis and Kevin Garnett. That would be a fun duo to share some bottomless margaritas with in this happy hour at La Salsa Cantina. The one, I guess, that I would say is maybe surprised me, and not even in like a surprising way, more just that I think their stock has clearly fallen over the offseason, is the Boston Celtics after the Jaylen Brown trade. We've seen Brad Stevens being here. I've not actually seen Joe Mazzulla being here, which I'm genuinely I'm kind of surprised about, because I think Joe Mazzulla is enough of a basketball psychopath that he would probably coach his summer league team, but it's not been him. It's been Emil Jefferson, I think his name is, from who was a guy who was at Duke before. I'm pretty sure who was our man for college basketball, was telling us. But they brought back in Hugo Gonzalez and Amari Williams to the fold for their game yesterday, convincing in their victory within that as well. Hugo Gonzalez, by the way, if Summer League is kind of maybe the one thing you can read into it, even though Drew says there's not too much you can, if there's one thing you can, is when he's able to get to a level where he's playing against similar levels of competition. So hopefully, if his ceiling is top NBA level, then when he gets top NBA level, that guy is a 3-level scorer. He's a rebounding machine. He can get assists. He really should have had a triple-double yesterday, if not for Celtics guys just missing threes. But what was quite clear about that Celtics Summer League roster was the standards that are being set at the top of the organization in terms of shooting threes, in terms of how they play defense and the energy they do that with, the rebound and the crashing the glass. That was all really on display in that Summer League roster. And I don't think they'll go on to win it, because I'm pretty sure they've already lost one game so far. And there's a couple of teams that are yet to lose. But I looked at the Celtics and was a bit okay, I've maybe been caught up a little bit in the whole what was happening with Jaylen Brown? That's suicide for the Celtics. And I'm okay, this is still a really good organization where everything is clearly in place for them to even just be able to play the same basketball from top to bottom. I'm kind of pumping the brakes, I think, a little bit on worrying too much about the Celtics.
Yeah, and the biggest piece of why no Celtics fans need to panic is because they have a great foundation in place. You know what I mean? They're a properly run organization with Brad Stevens. They have one hell of a coach, which all you got to do is look at last year's team, and they were somehow able to move into a second seed. So the Celtics aren't any team that you need to be worried about in the East, which is going to be a little bit more competitive now. Well, we'll see what happens with Kawhi, but I think this pretty much, I cannot see a scenario to where that trade doesn't happen.
No, me neither.
It would shake up the NBA entirely, because the moves that were made on both sides. So I think it's a way that the NBA kind of finds a way around it. How they do it, who knows? But yeah, Boston is no team that I'm worried about. The Knicks, I just seen Mike Brown there on the screen that's in front of us. How cool is this? We just left Summer League, and in our view in front of us, we're watching a Summer League game on television. So that's the crazy thing about Summer League. But none of the Knicks were here because they were at the ESPYs last night, which Jalen Brunson swept and took 4 awards away. So everything is kind of shaping up for him and the Knicks. But the real question to you is the early prediction. There has not been a repeat champion in 8 years. So if you had to kind of key in on a team right now in the mid-July, who do you think would be the favorite right now?
I'm in danger of causing myself the same problem I caused myself last season by just like thinking the West would just be too much for the East to handle. You mentioned that, we are in this parity era where like no one really retains championships these days. It's hard for me to see past either OKC revenge or San Antonio revenge, I guess, really, to an extent. I think San Antonio as a team takes another step forward this season. I think even like the Darryn Fox piece, which I've talked about during the playoffs, me and you talked about a lot, is a little clunky to me and maybe gets in the way of Dylan Harper a little bit. I think if they can figure that piece of it out, it doesn't really have to be trading him away. I think personally if I was a GM I'd trade him away, but that's why I'm not an NBA GM, is because I'm doing it from more like a hot-headed standpoint of having watched those playoffs, whereas they can do it with the cool heads, the analytics, all those things, and make a more informed decision than me. If you put a sort of gun to my head, I'd probably say OKC is who I'm going to go for. I just like the roster moves they made this off-season. Me and you at one point sort of went a bit deeper into the payroll, and I was talking about being worried that like Isaiah Hartenstein and guys like that would maybe have to be traded away. And really all they had to do to just get their books balanced was trade away Aaron Wiggins for next to nothing. And I'm trying to remember the second guy they traded away for next to next. Oh, Isaiah Joe. Isaiah Joe was the other guy they traded away for next to nothing. Kept Isaiah Hartenstein, got him onto a slightly more team-friendly deal that still rewards his play against Wemby during that Spurs series. So I'm probably rooting for OKC. Who are you thinking?
It's hard for me not to root for the Spurs. But again, we have to see how that situation with Fox and Harper unfolds. It is going to be very difficult to talk Harper to coming off a bench again. So I don't see that scenario. So I'm not sure what it looks like, but right now I just have to think that Wemby's going to go on a revenge tour after what happened to the finals. And although we haven't had a runner-up or a champion make it back to the big dance, I think this is the first time that we see it happen.
Fair play. Well, that's going to probably round it off then for our summer league trip, our summer league experience. As we mentioned in the first episode, the first time that me and Drew have met, kind of crazy. We had to fly over to the States. We'll make sure that doesn't happen next season. We'll make sure there are some more in-person podcasts like this one, because I think we both enjoy the energy of being in each other's presence, for one, off camera or on camera. But I think it makes more sense for you guys as well that we're doing as much on camera as we can next season. So we'll try and make that happen for you guys. Appreciate all the support. It's meant that we can come out to Summer League and do these cool things as well. All the support on Crossover the Pond this season. We want to keep leveling up though. We want to keep leveling up next season. Keep leveling up beyond this. Hopefully we'll be back at Summer League next year to do even more of this. But all that's left to do is for me to physically now swing the rock over to Drew to say lead us out, my man.
I'm in my shooting motion. You put it right in my shot pocket.
No dip.
No dip, straight up bucket getter. Yeah, this has been an incredible trip. We put this out into the atmosphere months ago. The world collide, made it happen. And I'm looking forward to season 2. We already got guests that we've kind of plucked away here from Vegas that we got already in the index. So I'm looking forward for us to be able to take it to the next level in regards to guests. I know in year 1, we didn't have many guests at all. We were setting the foundation, but the black book is a little bit deeper with the right people. So we're gonna be able to bring you even more information across the pond. So, but until then, myself, Josh Sexton, live from Vegas. Peace out.
Signing out.